Hi, welcome to the Harmony Inspired Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Harmony, an Ayurvedic and women's health practitioner, doctor of Chinese medicine acupuncture, registered nurse, and the founder of the Ayurveda Alchemist Academy. This podcast is where Ayurveda meets modern science, where ancient wisdom empowers women's health, holistic healing, and soul-led success. Because true wellness is about more than just green smoothies and yoga poses. We're diving into Ayurveda, women's hormones, and holistic business growth. Plus, I bring on leading experts from all corners of the wellness world to keep you inspired, educated, and evolving into your higher self. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It's like giving us a virtual high five of podcast love, and I truly appreciate you. All right, let's dive in. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the podcast, Ayurveda and Women's Health, an Evolution to Your Higher Self. This is a Harmony Inspired Health podcast. And that was a mouthful, wasn't it? No, welcome back to the show, beautiful souls. I am very, very glad that you are here today, because we, as in myself and you, are going to be diving into something that is close to my heart, and honestly, something that I think every woman needs to hear at some point in her life. Today, we are talking about perimenopause. And before you switch off because you think that does not apply to you yet, I want you to stay, because this conversation is for every woman at every age. Understanding what is coming or what is already happening in your body is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself. Now, if you are in the thick of it right now and you have been Googling your symptoms at 2 a.m. wondering what on earth is happening to your body, this episode is especially for you. I want to start by saying something really clearly, and that is that you are not falling apart. You are not losing your mind. You are not getting old. You are actually evolving. And your body is doing exactly what it is designed to do. Perimenopause is not a disease. It is not a malfunction. It is a transition, a passage, one of the most profound biological and spiritual shifts in a woman, and one that a woman will move through in her lifetime. And just like puberty was not a disease, this is not either, okay? It just wasn't really talked about until now. Like now we see it everywhere. Perimenopause this, perimenopause that. And it is great because women are now getting the information that they deserve. But there is some misinformation, and there is still some women that haven't been exposed to this information. So today we are going to cover what is actually happening in your body during perimenopause and why it creates the symptoms that it does, the ones that you are Googling at 2 a.m. in the morning. And we're also going to be talking about what is normal, what is physiological, and what your body is communicating to you through this transitional period. And then we'll have a look at how Ayurveda and acupuncture and the beautiful marriage of the two that I call Acuveda can support you through this transition with grace, wisdom, and a whole lot of compassion. Okay, so are you ready to dive in? Let's start with the basics, because honestly, a lot of women do not even know what perimenopause actually is or when it starts. The word peri means around or near. So perimenopause simply means around menopause. It is the transitional phase leading up to your final menstrual period, and it can begin anywhere from your late 30s to your mid 40s. Though for some women, it can start even earlier. Menopause itself is technically just a day. It is the day that marks 12 consecutive months without a period. Everything before that is perimenopause, and everything after is postmenopause. So when women say they are going through menopause, what they are usually describing is the perimenopausal transition, which can last anywhere from 4 to 12 years. Yes, you heard that right. Up to 12 years. So this is not a blip on the radar, okay? This is a significant chapter in your life, and it deserves to be understood and supported properly. So what is actually changing in your body in this phase of life? The central story of perimenopause is hormonal, specifically the changing relationships between your three main sex hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and to a lesser extent, testosterone. So, what happens is progesterone drops first. Most people think perimenopause is all about estrogen. And while estrogen is part of the story, the first hormone to decline is actually progesterone. Progesterone is produced after ovulation. So, as your cycles begin to change and ovulation becomes less consistent, progesterone production drops. This can happen years before your periods become irregular as well. Progesterone is your calming, nourishing, sleep supporting hormone. It also has a natural anti-anxiety effect on the brain. It supports deep sleep and it counterbalances the stimulation effects of estrogen. So you can only imagine or experience, maybe if you're going through it now, that when it drops, women often notice they start feeling more anxious, more irritable, more wired at night time. They are not sleeping as well, and their periods may become heavier and more erratic. And they often have no idea that this is hormonal because their estrogen has not gone wild yet. Now let's look at estrogen. It becomes erratic in this phase. So rather than declining in a smooth, gradual way, as a lot of people think, estrogen in perimenopause fluctuates wildly. It's up, it's down, it's all over the place. It can spike very high and then crash really low, sometimes within the same cycle. And so women who are really sensitive to hormonal fluctuations will feel extreme shifts in their mood, anxiety fluctuations, extreme fatigue, lethargy, all of the things that come with fluctuating hormones. And this is also why symptoms can feel so unpredictable. One week you feel fine, and the next you are having hot flushes, brain fog, joint pain, and you have completely lost your patience with everything and everyone. Estrogen is not just a reproductive hormone. It is also deeply involved in almost every system in your body. It is anti-inflammatory. It supports the health of your joints and connective tissue. It maintains the moisture of your mucous membranes, your skin, your vaginal tissue, your gut lining, and it supports cognitive function and memory. It also regulates your cardiovascular system. It maintains bone density. It influences your mood, your libido, and your energy. So when estrogen begins to fluctuate and eventually decline, you are not just dealing with reproductive changes. And this is really important to understand because you're actually dealing with a whole body shift. And this is why the symptom of perimenopause is so broad and can feel so overwhelming. Okay, now let's look at testosterone because this also shifts. Testosterone in women is produced by the ovaries and adrenal glands, and it too declines through this perimenopausal transition. Testosterone supports our libido, our energy, our motivation, our muscle tone, and cognitive sharpness. So if you're feeling like a real big just lack of motivation in life, for your purpose and passion, then maybe your testosterone is declining. As it drops, women can notice a real flatness in their drive, a loss of spark or ambition, reduced muscle mass, and a lower desire for intimacy. Now that you understand what is changing hormonally in your body with the fluctuation of estrogen, the decline in progesterone and testosterone, let's have a look at what these changes create and the specific symptoms that are caused by these changes. Because once you understand the why, the symptoms stop feeling random and scary and start making complete sense. So I want to break it down into the most common symptoms that I see in my clinic. And, that number one, hot flushes and night sweats. That is a common culprit. Now, these are the most perimenopausal symptoms, and they are caused by estrogen's relationship with the hypothalamus, which is the part of your brain that regulates body temperature. As estrogen fluctuates, the hypothalamus becomes oversensitive to small changes in body temperature and essentially misfires, triggering a sudden heat release through the skin. It is your body's thermostat becoming temporarily dysregulated. It's not dangerous, but it is uncomfortable. Yes, it certainly is. And it is physiological. It's a physiological response to the hormones shifting. The next most common symptom I see is sleep disruption. Both progesterone and estrogen support healthy sleep. Progesterone directly promotes deep, restful sleep, whilst estrogen supports the regulation of serotonin and other neurotransmitters that influence sleep quality. Now, as I mentioned, both of these hormones decline and shift in this phase, and so sleep is inevitably affected. And then you add in the night sweats, waking you up, and you just have a recipe for exhaustion. And unfortunately, I see this so much with the women I see in my clinic. Now, this is not insomnia as a primary condition. It is a hormonal disruption of your sleep system. Another symptom I see a lot is brain fog and memory changes. Estrogen has a direct neuroprotective effect on the brain. It supports the production of acetylcholine, which is essential for memory and cognitive processing. It also supports the health of the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain involved in forming new memories. So when estrogen fluctuates, women often notice word finding difficulties. And I'm going to tell you, this happens to me, and this has happened to me a lot lately. Also, forgetfulness and difficulty concentrating. And just in general, that brain fogginess. This is temporary and largely reversible as the body finds its new hormonal equilibrium. So there is some good news there, guys. Another sign and symptom that a lot of women don't realize is due to this perimenopause transition is joint pain, stiffness, and muscle tension. This is one of the least talked about symptoms, and yet it affects so many women. Now, estrogen is profoundly anti-inflammatory. It lubricates connective tissue and supports joint health. As it declines, inflammation increases, tissues become drier, and joints can ache, stiffen, and become painful. Many women are sent to rheumatologists for what is actually a hormonal-driven inflammatory response, or to a physio or to an osteo, thinking something has sort of gone wrong in that sort of stratosphere, shall we say. And the lower back is particularly vulnerable because estrogen also supports the health of spinal discs and surrounding tissue. Now, another one that a lot of women go through, and it is probably commonly known, is mood changes, anxiety, and irritability. Now, if you're ever on TikTok or Instagram, these are usually the number one memes that are created around perimenopause. So I think a lot of people understand this as being one of the symptoms. But why is it happening? Estrogen and progesterone, they're intertwined with your neurotransmitter system. Estrogen supports serotonin and dopamine, your feel-good chemicals, and progesterone supports GABA, your calming chemical. As these hormones shift, mood becomes less stable, unfortunately. And women who have never really experienced anxiety much in their lives suddenly find themselves really anxious and they don't know what is going on. And women who were generally even tempered, they can even notice a shortened fuse. This is neurochemistry, not personality. And I feel like this is like one of the hardest ones because this is where fit women feel like I'm just not myself anymore. I'm like always angry at my children, my husband, and they feel guilty and they get in this shame spiral and their partners don't understand. So I really, really feel for the women who do experience this one deeply. Another common side effect is our digestive changes. So, estrogen influences gut motility and the health of our gut lining. As it declined, digestion can slow down and bloating can increase. I mean, have you heard of the perimenopausal belly? This is usually what is happening. Women often notice that foods that they used to digest really easily now leave them feeling really heavy or uncomfortable. The gut hormone connection is profound and deeply underappreciated. So I think this is something that we really need to understand. Now, another predictable and common part of this transition is your change to your cycle. Cycles may become shorter, longer, heavier, then lighter, or just irregular. They can become really erratic, just like some of our moons. And this is because the ovaries, they're winding down their regular hormone production. Skipping cycles, having cycles come really close together, or experiencing changes in the flow are all part of the normal spectrum of perimenopausal change. Now, I want to point that out because when we talk about menstrual cycles being a reflection of our health as a woman, and we talk about having irregular cycles as not being normal and this needs to be addressed, we're talking about women who are not yet in this perimenopausal state. If we look at all of this, every single one of these symptoms in this transitional phase, it is your body communicating a significant transition. It isn't your body betraying you. It's not your body challenging you. Well, actually, maybe it is. It can challenge us in many ways, but it's not that your body is doing anything that it shouldn't be. It is your body actually changing, adapting, and moving into a new phase of life. And here is what I want you to hold on to through the rest of this episode. This transition, when supported wisely, is one of the greatest invitations to know yourself more deeply than you ever have before. And I'm so passionate about this. I even wrote a book on it. So if you haven't already, go and grab a copy of my book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her, because we talk about this in immense detail throughout the book. Okay. Moving on, I really wanted to take a moment here just to address something that I feel very strongly about because the way that our culture frames menopause and menopause. Did I say menopause twice? I meant menopause and perimenopause, has a real impact on how women will experience it. We live in a culture that medicalizes the female body at almost every stage of its natural life cycle. Puberty becomes a condition to manage. Periods become something to suppress or to constantly fix if they're not quote unquote perfect. Pregnancy becomes a medical event, and menopause becomes a deficiency disease and a loss of estrogen that quickly needs to be replaced and corrected. And now I am not saying that medical support is not sometimes appropriate, because of course it is. And you know what? I have actually suggested bioidentical hormones to some of my clients because it definitely has a place. But I want to offer a different frame, one that honors what this transition actually is. In many traditional cultures, the woman moving through menopause is seen as coming into her power. In many Indigenous cultures, the three phases of a woman's life, the maiden, the mother, and the crone, are each considered sacred. The crone was not a diminished woman. She was the keeper of wisdom, the elder, the one who had moved beyond the demands of the reproductive years and into a new kind of authority. The word crone, by the way, comes from the same root as crown. So it means the crowned one. And perimenopause is the threshold. It's the crossing from one chapter to the next. And like all thresholds, it can feel disorientating, uncomfortable at times, and even terrifying. But that does not mean something has gone wrong. It means something significant is happening. So please, I just want you to know that your body is not failing. It is completing one cycle and beginning another. And the symptoms, as uncomfortable as they can be, are often the body's way of asking you to slow down, to listen, to reorientate yourself towards what truly matters. They are an invitation to a deeper relationship with yourself. So, before we move into the practical support tools, I want to invite you just to sit with that for a moment. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if you are exactly where you are supposed to be? What if this is not the beginning of your decline, but the beginning of your becoming? Have a moment just to reflect on that. And now that you have, let's move into ways that we can support you through this transition, how we can ease those symptoms and make life more comfortable for you. Ayurveda understands this transition and how it can support women through it. Because honestly, Ayurveda has been holding wisdom about the female life cycle for over 5,000 years, and its approach to perimenopause is one of the most nuanced, compassionate, and practical frameworks that I have come across. Hence why I've written about it in my book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her, why I teach about it in the Ayurveda Alchemist Academy, and why I love to podcast about it. So I want to share these stages of life and how they are affected from an Ayurvedic perspective. Let's look at the Vata stage of life. In Ayurveda, life is divided into three broad phases, each governed by one of the three doshas or biological energies. The Kapha phase covers birth to roughly your 20s and is characterized by growth, building, and nourishment. The Pitta phase covers roughly the 20s to the early 50s and 60s and is the time of transformation, productivity, and fire. The Vata phase begins around the mid-is and onwards and is a time of wisdom, movement, lightness, and eventually letting go. Perimenopause therefore falls into the junction of the Pitta and Vata phases of life. Now, this is not incidental. It is the body beginning to shift its dominant energy from the fire and heat to the productive years in the more ethereal, wisdom-orientated Vata phase. And Vata, the energy of air and space, has specific qualities. It is dry, light, mobile, subtle, cold, and erratic. Does that sound familiar? The hot flushes driven by erratic heat, the dryness of the tissues, the irregular cycles, the anxious, unsettled mind, the disrupted sleep, the joint pain, the fluctuating mood. These are all expressions of increasing vata in the system, transitioning from the pitta fire phase to the vata phase. And understanding this means we know how to approach it. In Ayurveda, we treat like with opposites. So if vata is cold, dry, erratic, and depleting, we support it with warmth, nourishment, routine, moisture, and grounding. Another aspect that's really important from the Ayurvedic lens is the importance of Agni. Now, this is one of the most important concepts in Ayurvedic support for perimenopause. And the word Agni means our digestive fire. In Ayurveda, the health of every tissue in the body depends on the strength and quality of Agni. Hormones in Ayurvedic understanding are considered a function of the subtle tissues and the reproductive tissue essence known as ojas. When Agni is strong, ojas is nourished and the transition is smoother. When Agni is weak or irregular, which is common in perimenopause because estrogen influences digestive motility, or toxic metabolic waste begins to accumulate. Ama is sticky, it's heavy and obstructive. It can manifest as joint stiffness, brain fog, sluggish digestion, heaviness in the body, and a coated tongue. Before we focus on nourishing and rebuilding, we need to ensure that Agni is strong enough to process what we give it. So let's have a look at some key Ayurvedic lifestyle principles to help support these symptoms. Now, the first one that I'm going to address is dinacharya, which is the power of daily routine. Because Vata is the energy of irregularity and movement, one of the most powerful things a perimenopausal woman can do is establish a consistent daily routine that is conducive to her individual constitution. Now, that would look like waking up at the same time, eating at the same times, going to bed at the same times. Now, this sounds really simple, but for Vata, it is actual medicine. Regularity is the antidote to eradicate Vata energy, and it sends a deep signal of safety to the nervous system. And in perimenopause, the nervous system needs so much more support than it ever did. Another beautiful practice you can add into your dinacharya is abhyanga, which is a daily self-oil massage. This warm oil self-massage is one of the most supportive practices for the perimenopausal body. You can use sesame oil warmed, and then you apply it to the body before a shower. And it's really deeply nourishing to the nervous system. It lubricates the joints. It supports the dryness of the skin and the connective tissue. And it has a really calming and grounding effect on Vata. Think of it as giving your body the nourishment that declining estrogen used to provide. So this is something you can do to support your body now that your estrogen is declining. It really is an act of deep self-care. And let me tell you, it works. The amount of women who have applied this to their daily routine and have come back to report to me how much it's made a difference is still mind-blowing to me today. Now, when we look at our diet in this phase of life, it really needs to follow these three things. It needs to be warm, moist, and nourishing. Ayurveda recommends that perimenopausal women Move towards warm, cooked, easily digestible, and gently nourishing foods. So, that being said, cold, raw, dry, or processed foods will aggravate vata. And so we really need to swap those out for warm soups, nourishing broths, well-cooked grains, healthy fats like ghee and coconut oil, root vegetables, and gentle spices like ginger, cumin, fennel. They're all so supportive for your digestive health in this phase. The goal here is really to nourish the tissues without overloading a potentially sluggish digestive system. And foods that are warm and cooked are easy for your body to digest and absorb. Okay, now let's look at sleep hygiene. Because vata governs the nervous system and sleep, supporting sleep definitely becomes a priority. Ayurveda recommends that you are asleep by 10 p.m., at least in bed by 9:30 p.m., because the pitta phase of night is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And this is when the body does its deepest internal cleansing and renewal. So you really want to be asleep for this period of time because it is medicine to the soul, to the mind, to the body. The body is doing its best work during these hours. And if you fall into the trap of staying up later, your body will naturally get a second wind at this time, and then you will feel more awake and more alert, and getting to sleep will be even harder. Things that you can do to help your sleep is a warm bath or a foot soak before bed. So this can be really calming to the nervous system. And Abhyanga massages we've just spoken about. Even a small amount of warm milk with nutmeg if tolerated. Also, keeping the bedroom coolish and dark, they will just all support a much better sleep. Okay, so now I'm going to suggest a few different Ayurvedic herbs that are really supportive for perimenopause, but like all medicine, it doesn't suit everybody, okay? And so it's really important to speak with an Ayurvedic practitioner before you start taking these herbs, because herbs are prescribed based on your individual constitution as well. However, this is just for educational purposes and also for the Ayurvedic practitioners and prakis who also listen to this podcast. So Shatavari, this is going to be the queen herb for the perimenopausal woman. Shatavari, which translates as she who has 100 husbands, is supposedly deeply nourishing to the female reproductive tissue. Now, if I had 100 husbands, I don't know how nourishing that would be, but hey, let's just run with it. It is also cooling, it's lubricating, and it is an adaptogenic. So it directly supports estrogen deficiency and estrogen deficient presentations and helps ease hot flushes, dryness, mood fluctuations, and digestive changes. So really it is pretty much a go-to tonic for this phase. I'm sure you've all heard of ashwagandha. This is another herb that for some women is deeply supportive in perimenopause, particularly where there is fatigue, adrenal depletion, and anxiety. This herb is actually warming and building, so it's best suited to women with a colder, more depleted presentation. And it's worth noting that some women find it very activating, in which case a gentler nervine like Brahmi or Jatamansi may be more appropriate because it can actually be too overstimulating for some women. And as I just mentioned, let's talk a little bit more about Brahmi and Jatamansi because both of these are nervine tonics that support the mind and nervous system. Brahmi supports cognitive clarity and is very cooling, making it excellent for brain fog and anxiety in perimenopausal women who tend towards more heat. Now, Jatamansi is one of the best Ayurvedic herbs for anxiety and restlessness and is deeply calming without being sedating. Okay, the next on the list is Triphala. This classical formulation of 3 fruits supports healthy elimination, gently clears armor and tonifies the digestive tract without being harsh. It's taken at night before bed and can be a foundational support for the digestive changes, which I spoke about, that are common in perimenopause. Now, if we're looking for support for joint pain and inflammation, then Shalaki and Gugulu can be really powerful. Shalaki or Boswellia is powerfully anti-inflammatory and very joint supportive. Or Yogaraj Gugulu is a classical Ayurvedic formula specifically indicated for Vata type musculoskeletal conditions and is particularly well suited to lower back pain and joint stiffness in this phase. Now, another complementary treatment that works so beautifully for women in this phase is acupuncture. It is such a wonderful method to help support the symptoms like hot flushes, the anxiety, the forgetfulness, fluid retention, stiff joints, all of the symptoms that we have spoken about. And I love to integrate acupuncture with Ayurveda because whilst Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine are two different ancient healing systems and geographically distinct, they share many of the same foundational principles and they complement each other absolutely beautifully. In Chinese medicine, perimenopause is understood primarily as a time of declining kidney jing, which is the foundational essence stored in the kidneys that governs all of our reproductive health. And so we can really support this by activating a lot of those well-studied and scientifically validated acupuncture points. Ayurveda also has a method similar to acupuncture, and it's actually called mama puncture. And instead, Ayurveda uses mama points. Some of the acupuncture points and mama points actually overlap each other. Like they're the same. And that is just so crazy to me that two completely different systems from two different parts of the world can have the exact same points in the body that offer a very similar outcome when activated. So that has always just blown my mind. And so I've actually come up with this beautiful method called AcuVeda, and it's taking the essence of TCM acupuncture and the foundational roots of Ayurveda and bringing them together to work on nourishing the body's the flow of prana or chi, we say in TCM, and blood through the meridian system and the nadi system, nourishing deficient organ systems, clearing excess heat, restoring the body's internal equilibrium. When we apply these principles, it works on the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis, essentially influencing the same hormonal communication pathways that are shifting during perimenopause. So it's such a beautiful integrative approach. Okay, I have given you a lot of information here. And so I do want to wrap this up. We've spoken about the different hormones that are affected, how they're affected, what symptoms occur, and why. We've looked at little ways that we can support our body through the Ayurvedic lens and even the TCM lens. But before we do wrap up today, I want to speak directly to the woman who is in the middle of this right now, the one who is exhausted and hot and emotionally all over the place, the one who cried on the way to work for no reason, the one whose joints ache when she wakes up in the morning, the one who used to have such a sharp mind and now cannot remember where she put her keys, and the one who does not feel like herself anymore. I see you, I truly do, and I want you to know something. What you are feeling is real. It is not in your head. It is not weakness. It is not you falling apart. It is a profound biological, emotional, and even spiritual reorganization. Your body is doing something enormous right now. It is changing its entire hormonal architecture. And it is doing all of that while you are still showing up to work and caring for people and running a household and being a human in the world. The symptoms are not punishment. They are not evidence that you have done something wrong or that you have not taken good enough care of yourself. They are the body's honest communication of what it needs right now. More rest, more nourishment, more warmth, more gentleness, and more time. One of the most powerful things you can do in this phase is to stop fighting your body and start listening to it. Your body is not the enemy. It has been your home your entire life, and it is asking you now, maybe for the first time in a very long time, to actually take care of it, to slow down, to nourish, to rest without guilt, to receive support. This transition has a purpose beyond the physical. Many women describe perimenopause as a time when they stop being able to tolerate things that were not right for them. Relationships that were draining, work that no longer has meaning, people pleasing that was slowly hollowing you out. The perimenopausal body has a very low threshold for authenticity, inauthenticity. And while that can feel destabilizing, it is also a profound gift. It is your body and your psyche aligning and asking you, what do you actually want? Who are you separate from all of the roles you have been playing? What is the next chapter of your life going to be built on? You're not losing yourself. You are finding yourself. And that is worth supporting with every beautiful tool we have. So as we do wrap up here today, let me leave you with some key takeaways from our conversation. Remember, perimenopause is natural, physiological transition. It's not a disease or a malfunction. It is the body moving from one hormonal chapter to another, and the symptoms are the body's honest communication of that change. The hormonal changes of perimenopause, declining progesterone, fluctuating and eventually declining estrogen, and shifting testosterone affect almost every system in the body, which is why the symptom picture can be so broad and so different for every woman. Understanding the why behind your symptoms helps you work with your body rather than against it. Ayurveda understands perimenopause as the transition into the Vata phase of life and supports it through warm, nourishing, grounding practices. Acupuncture has a strong evidence base for reducing hot flushes, improving sleep, supporting mood, and addressing joint pain. And Ayurveda, the integration of both systems, offers a deeply individualized and holistic approach to supporting women through this transition. And above all, you are evolving into the next most powerful version of yourself, and you deserve all of the support along the way. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a woman in your life who needs to hear it. And if you would like to explore this deeper and you haven't already got a copy of my book, my Amazon best-selling book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her, please grab a copy. I will leave a link in the show notes. And if you are someone who would love to support women through this but don't know how, please book in a free discovery call, because this is exactly the stuff that we teach in the Ayurveda Alchemist Academy, which is an accredited academy and will certify you as an Ayurveda consultant. And if you want to go even deeper, an Ayurvedic practitioner. Until next time, take care with yourself. You are so worth it. Namaste.